President Biden has just signed a bill, and this is going to be a very important bill because this is going to have a major impact on the United States and millions of Americans. Now, I promise to keep you up to date on everything that is going on with the US economy and the American people. All you gotta do is hit that subscribe button and make sure you click that notification bell. That's all you need to do. But now, let's listen in and hear a little bit more about what President Biden just did.
The president taking a significant and symbolic step into a post-pandemic world. The White House is just now saying that the president has just signed a bill that will end the national emergency declared during the COVID pandemic. Remember, that's a state of emergency that had been in place for more than 3 years.
Wow, 3 years. That's how long this national emergency has been in place. Now, what we are being told is that there are many changes that are going to occur and they're going to happen very quickly. Now, what are some of these changes? Well, let's listen in and let's find out.
Because once this national COVID emergency ends, a lot of things that are tied up in sort of the justification for how they were done, when it comes to things like Medicare, different kinds of health insurance, certain things could be authorized because they were citing this national COVID emergency. So once that's done, and in some cases 60 days after, certain things that were available and that people could take advantage of will no longer exist.
Yeah, you heard it right there, that there could be things that are no longer going to exist. Why? Because they were only implemented. These changes were made because of this COVID national emergency. That was the only reason why. Now, a lot of people speculated over the years, is this something that we really needed? We heard from mostly Democrats and they said, yes, this was something that was absolutely needed. But as we get further and further away from this pandemic and from this virus, this is something that we just don't need. So it's very important to understand that this is happening, this has ended, and changes are going to be coming very soon. Now, I know many people are going to ask this question, so I want to get right to it. Why did President Biden sign a bill to end the COVID national emergency when we already knew it was going to end on May 11th? Well, let's look into that and let's watch this video clip and you can listen for yourself why this matters.
But this is a little bit different from the public health emergency, which the White House has said is also going to expire just a couple of weeks from now in May, which is tied to another big implication here when we talk about immigration, something we've discussed many times on your show, and the fact that Title 42, which is that Trump-era public health policy, is essentially going to cease to exist. And then you really could see an influx, experts say, of migrants at the border seeking asylum who won't be turned away under that Title 42 authority. So that's still a couple of weeks away. But this is really a moment in time that the White House is marking and saying 3 years into the pandemic that it is no longer a national emergency, even though, of course, there are still things like vaccines, boosters, and discussions that this president wants to keep discussing and says are still important tools in battling COVID.
So right there, these are two completely different things. One is the public health emergency. That is going to end on May 11th. We already knew that. That's when it expires. But this one, this is the COVID national emergency. Again, these are two completely different things. The reason why this is so important and the reason why I bring this up is because many states, and again, just keep this in mind, the federal government have been allowing things to continue to go on, even though we knew the pandemic has been over. So this is very important to understand what's going on. I wanted to just run over it very quickly because, again, this was already signed. Now, let's address one last thing, and that is, are we going to see any additional relief? Because yes, even though the pandemic is over, the threat of the virus has pretty much subsided. We are still not out of the woods when it comes to pandemics, when it comes to more viruses. Okay? We know this from the CDC, and whether you want to take information from the CDC or not, that is completely up to you. But here's the thing. There is a lot of money currently in states. Okay, a lot of money. Now I want to show you this really quick. Look at this. Now this right here is the COVID money tracker. Okay, there you go. You can see it right there. This is the COVID money tracker. Now, you can see This is the color in dark. This is what has already been dispersed. The color in the light, this is what is the money that's allowed. Okay, so they're completely different. So for administrative actions, they had $1 trillion that they could spend. They still have $200 billion that has not been spent. Right here, legislative actions. This is for Congress. They've allocated $6 trillion in spending. 5.6 trillion has been spent, which means $400 billion is still sitting there. Then you get to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve had $7.1 trillion that they could spend. They've spent $4.7 trillion, which means they still have $2.4 trillion that they could spend. That's a lot of money. Okay? The reason why I wanted to show you that is because a lot of people think we've spent all the money. There's no additional money. There is money. And then on top of this funding tracker, what you need to keep in mind is that there's still money from states. We have no clue how much money the states actually have. Now, and I believe that is still in here, is part of the legislative action, but we don't know exactly how much the states have. We have a good idea, but again, that's part of this national emergency, is that states have until January 1st, 2025 to spend that money, or else they will have to give it back to the U.S. Treasury. So that's why it's so important, because there's still a lot of money that people say has been spent, when in reality, has it? Not too sure. But again, that's the big update as of today. This actually came out, I believe he signed it 2 days ago. But keep in mind what was going on 2 days ago. We were worried about inflation. We were worried about a recession. We were worried about that yesterday. And then today, obviously, the big worry and the big issue was we got the new CPI report. It looked good. Everything was going great. The markets were green. Everybody was excited. And then we got the Fed monthly minutes. And the Federal Reserve announced 3 times within their monthly minutes that yes, a recession between the third and fourth quarter of 2023 is likely. So that's what got everybody freaked out as of today. But again, I thought this was very important and need to get to it. I know I'm a couple days late, but just understand I wanted to get the other stuff out first, because again, that is extremely important as well. But if you have any questions on this, please ask your questions down in the comment section below. Again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.